Welcome to the Nashville Money Guys channel. My name is Brandon McDonald. Normally, I have two guys with me. On occasion, there's some podcast episodes that are on here, and we're a hard money lender based out of Nashville, Tennessee. We've started this channel to kind of raise awareness for our business that we exist. We're a hard money lender based in Nashville, Tennessee, and what we do is lend money to people who want to fix and flip houses. So if that's you, check us out, NashvilleMoneyGuys.com. This is the cool thing about the channel being small. We got 2 comments so far, 2, which seems lame. But it doesn't seem lame to me at all because now I get to actually go in here. I'm going to read both of the comments. One of them is funny. And then I'm going to actually break down the other one, which is a very pertinent question that a lot of people run into, which is essentially, what's the plan here? Like, what am I doing with this rental property? And what if I decide I want to do something else with it? So we're going to start with the fun comment, which is from my buddy Dustin. Dustin, I appreciate that you watch these. It's very flattering to me. Dario, I hope you're there. Your whole family. Hello, everyone. Dustin Plummer 4231 says, I need you to run the numbers on doing a cash out refi and buying more rentals, and also doing a cash out refi and buying a barn full of show horses and breeding them. Do not recommend. Long story short. Now, if horses are part of your life and they're part of your plan and they're an undeniable part of your soul that you must have, you don't have a choice. You're going to have horses, and you're not just going to have one. You're going to have 400. So get ready. Dustin, I wouldn't wish that curse on anybody. All right, let's get into the real question. And we're actually going to break this down because this is a really good question. Stick Shooter says, lots of info to think about. I've got a rental in North Carolina that we bought for $130,000 in 2009. I have a 3.5% fixed rate, 30-year mortgage on it. Mortgage payment is $700 a month, and we're renting it for over $1,200 a month, minus 10% management fee. We were thinking about selling it last year when housing prices were getting high, but it didn't seem like we'd be able to make much off of it since its value was still under $200,000. We'd love to sell it and buy a rental here in Georgia close to us, but house prices and interest rates right now make that seem like a bad option. There's 2 factors to consider here. The first factor is you have a property that is not in the state that you would like it to be. And what you didn't give me feedback on is whether this is like hey, we would love to have a property that we can personally use or any other additional info. So I'm going to just assume that this is just about math. This is just about making money. You're not going to like the numbers in the first scenario. Because you've had the rental for so long, you're going to be able to look back at the history and kind of have an idea. Basically, maintenance and vacancy, which are 2 things that, depending on the quality of the property and depending on how good the management company are, they can kind of make you or break you. So let's just go through it. I'm going to assume kind of the worst just from the general numbers. Let's go through this first. We know the rent is $1,200. Management is 10%. So that brings us down to $1,080, right? It's easy. $1,200, 10%, $1,080. Take that $1,080 minus 10% for maintenance. Maintenance is one of those things that's $120 a month. You're not going to use it every month. Obviously, you know the track record of the home better than we're going to know it. So depending on the shape of the home, maybe your maintenance is going to run less than this, but I would argue that that's a very safe metric to put out there, especially if you have a house that you've owned since 2009. That's a long time. That brings you down to $960. $960 minus vacancy. This is where the property management company can really help you out, because if you've got one that will list the property for rent and allow people to go in and look at the house, you know, the tenants that are in there are okay with it, and they can lease that thing out and stack people in super fast. You don't have a major like rehab whenever people move out. They can save you time on this, but I'm still putting 10% per month. So I'm assuming that you're going to lose an entire month, maybe even an entire month, just plus a little bit. So that brings us down to $840. Now, this is the last one that people don't really think about. You're going to have larger expenses that pop up on occasion. So like every once in a while, you're going to have to put a roof on it, like maybe once during the life of the home. Now, if you've rehabbed the house at the very beginning, you get 15, 20 years out of that roof. They say that like certain shingles are a 30-year shingle. They're not a 30-year shingle. Every insurance company that I know, when that roof starts to go now, they're going out and they're going, you need to replace this roof or we're going to drop you. And any new insurance company is going to go out and say, you got to replace the roof before we're ready to insure you. When you take 10% for CapEx, which is basically going to live in an account that you have, that's $720. So that leaves you $720 a month. So you have made $20 a month. Yes. So you get to take some depreciation on the property, which means that you're not going to pay taxes on your $20 a month that you've made. I'd be really curious to just like over time, what it actually feels like for you. Like, do you actually feel like every month you've been making cash flow, or in the beginning were the rents so low that you may have actually been feeding it? Did you know that you can ask ChatGPT basically to run an amortization schedule? What I did was essentially say, hey, I've made 180 payments on a loan that I took out at 3% for $130,000. How much principal left do I owe? And you can make variations of that, but it's super handy for coming up with stuff like this. So based on what I'm seeing here, the initial $130,000 is now paid down to $79,365.74. That's if zero additional payments were made. That's if it's just basically 15 years even. I don't know what month you took it out in. But here's the other cool thing. You've got somebody else that's paying down roughly $2,500 a year in principal on the house. And you've got a house that's going up every year a little bit. So that's another calculation that we could do to figure out how much the property is actually increasing every year over year on average, right? So that's one of the reasons that rentals are so cool. The cash flow looks like garbage. Now, it may look better than what I just said. It may be better than $20 a month, but you're gaining that $2,500 a year in basically principal pay down, which over time goes up. Sorry, I was reading the wrong line. It's actually just over $4,000. It's $4,100 a year in principal pay down. So that's like an extra $5,000 a year that's getting paid down, and that number goes up over time. Now, because this is a relatively inexpensive house, it never gets past like $6,500. So like your last year is a $6,500 principal pay down. But in theory, you didn't really have to do a lot. Like somebody else did all the stuff. You made a little bit of cash flow. And then at the very end of this thing, you have this asset worth $200,000 right now that maybe it's worth $250,000 when you're done. This $250,000 chunk that you paid $130,000 for, but somebody else essentially paid for the entire time. That's why rentals to me are one of the like best blue collar ways to get ahead, because it's not, oh man, I need to earn a huge income and be able to then pay taxes on that and then take cash that I've got left over and stick it in an IRA or a 401k or, whatever other, stock type thing that you have to do. You can literally use 100% leverage if you know how to do it, get a rental secured, and then allow somebody else to pay for it. It's the next morning. I didn't just like magically change shirts, and that's why my eyes were super puffy, because it's the morning and I'm old. So here's another option, a third option. I'm going to break this down kind of in chunks. The individual concepts are easy to grasp, like by themselves. But when you string them all together, like if I ran it through fast, it's kind of confusing. You list the house for sale for $225,000. Now I know that you're saying it's only worth $200,000. No. Hear me out. You list the house for sale for $225,000, and you will carry the note. You will seller finance this. You want $75,000 in cash down. So right now what you've got is you're going to list the house for sale. You're probably going to list it on like Craigslist and Facebook, a few other places that kind of for sale by owner type houses get sold. $225,000, $75,000 down. You're going to hold a note for, so this is like the next little brick of understanding that you have to do. You're going to hold a note for $150,000. And here's why somebody would do this. Because you're only going to charge them 5% interest on the 150. So where your like extra juice is coming in is from that 25,000 extra above list. You're only going to charge them 5% interest. All right, here's the next part of it where you're like, wait, no, there's already a loan. We owe a mortgage to this. That's okay. You don't have to structure this as an actual sale to the person. What you can do is structure the $75,000 as an option payment. So instead of doing it as a sale, they now have the option to purchase this house for $150,000 at 5% for 30 years, which increases your cash flow. So I'll put the numbers off to the side here, because now they're covering taxes, insurance, maintenance, There's no vacancy, assuming because they live there. You've loosened up 75 grand that you can go do something else with, and you've increased your cash flow. Now, the downside is you no longer capture any of the appreciation of the home. So like if the home goes up in value over the next 10, 15, 20 years and doubles, whatever, you no longer get that, which is why you wouldn't want to just take that 75 grand and go just like do something fun with it. You'd want to invest it in something else. But it also increases your net monthly cash flow. Remember, from 20 bucks, it's going to increase it fairly dramatically. But it's also going to create a little bit more sustainability because you know that there's somebody who owns the home, who's staying in the house, who lives there. The worst case scenario is that rates drop back down and they refinance you out. Or they decide that they want to move and they want to sell the house. But if they do that, then you're basically in the same spot that you're in now, except you've made an additional $25,000 on the sales price of the home. Sticks, you've got my instant message. You can DM me if you want to. I enjoyed doing this. So thank you for actually writing down a very good question and then allowing me to make this follow-up video. If you're interested in hard money lending in the Southeast region of the United States, check us out at NashvilleMoneyGuys.com. My name is Brandon McDonald, and thank you for watching.